In October 1974, with another harsh Wyoming winter on the way, and with food prices rising higher than most Americans could afford, 41-year-old Carl Higdon prepared to venture out into the woodlands and wilderness in an attempt to hunt down a large chunk of his family's meat supply for the following few months. He had done so several times before, but with ample space still in the freezer, which he had to feed himself, his wife, and 4 children, he ventured out again. On this particular hunting mission, however, things would take a bizarre and otherworldly turn. Higdon's account is one of the most fascinating on record, and one that offers some physical evidence of, and at the very least, a strange incident occurring. Furthermore, it is another case that offers details that are found in seemingly unconnected encounters, both across distance and time. Indeed, if there is any truth at all in the account of Carl Higdon, and all the indications are that the incident is genuine, then it might offer us some clues as why the UFO phenomenon exists and why it is so persistent. As the 25th October began, Carl Higdon was not actually planning to go hunting, at least not initially. He was preparing to go to work as normal when he received a phone call from one of his crew before the afternoon shift. He was sick and wouldn't be into work. Higdon, reasoning that he wouldn't be able to get anything done without his sick crew member, took the day off also. With the afternoon free, he decided to venture out into Wyoming countryside looking for elk. He would set out to Carbon County and to McCarthy Canyon with his truck packed for the afternoon. However, along the way, he encountered some fellow hunters who appeared to have trouble with their vehicle. He pulled over, offered assistance, the pair, and consequently began talking with them. They would inform him of a place deep in the Medicine Bow National Forest where there are much more elk, where the hunting was much better. It was a remote, little known spot, but due to his kindness, the stranded hunters were happy to divulge the information to Higdon. Following his getting their vehicle started, he set off again. However, this time he changed his destination. He would now head to the Medicine Bow National Forest instead. It wasn't too far out, he reasoned. He was around 40 miles from his hometown of Rawlins. By the time he arrived at the destination, it was late afternoon, just short of 4 p.m. There was still light, but it was about to go into decline. Upon exiting his truck and preparing his hunting gear, Higdon would spot another fellow hunter, his friend, Gary Eaton. The pair spoke for a few minutes before Gary informed him he was going higher into the forest than Higdon, but that he might scare down some elk for him. As his friend went on his way, Higdon made his way to the location the stranded hunters had informed him about. And as he did, he came across a concealed area behind a hill. It was shortly after entering this area that a sudden burst of movement out of the corner of his eye caught his attention. He focused on his surroundings and spotted a small herd of elk. He was slightly above the elk, 5 of them in total. With his hunting rifle raised, he took aim at one of the animals and fired. However, not only did the kickback from the gun not happen, there was no sound whatsoever. At the same time, Higdon had the end of the rifle in his sights and claims to have witnessed the bullet leave the barrel and travel through the air so slowly it floated like a butterfly. It would eventually drop to the ground about 50 feet in front of him. He suddenly became aware of a painful silence all around him. Not a sound came from anywhere or anything. Hayden could sense a feeling of static electricity that you often get before a fierce thunderstorm. Coming to his senses a little, he stepped forward to retrieve the fallen 7mm bullet. He noticed that the lead part was no longer in the bullet, which itself, or the casing of it, was misshapen considerably. Suddenly, a twig snapped somewhere nearby. Higdon would spin around, immediately seeing the figure in front of him. Thinking it was a fellow hunter, he lowered his gun quickly. As the strange figure emerged from the shadows of the trees, however, he realized something was terribly wrong. The figure was most definitely humanoid and male. It wasn't human. Higgins would later recall that the figure had no detectable ears, with very small eyes and no eyebrows. He also recalled that his hair was coarse, like straw growing out of his head. It had like a silk-like mouth that exposed three extremely large human-like teeth. Perhaps most bizarre were the antenna-like objects on each side of his forehead. Higdon would add, no chin was visible. His face just seemed to blend right into his throat. He had no jawbone. He would estimate the mystery male creature to be around 6 feet in height, adorned in a one-piece, tight-fitting black suit, similar to a wetsuit scuba divers wear. On the chest was a harness that crisscrossed each other. The figure also wore a metallic belt with a six-pointed yellow star where the buckle should have been. Already unnerved and bordering on panic, when Higdon noticed the creature's right arm, it's all he could do to prevent absolute terror from gripping him. Where the hand should have been was a drill-like device attached, or blended, onto his wrist. He looked at the left arm, noticed that there was nothing at all on the end of the blunt limb. The creature moved forward, directly approaching Higdon. Bracing himself for the worst, it was a disorientating surprise when the creature asked matter-of-factly, "How are you doing?" Already struggling to keep his composure and process what was happening, when the strange creature asked Higdon if he was hungry, it simply threw him even more. But before he could even answer the questions, a clear package levitated towards him, seemingly at the commands of the strange visitor. Higdon reached for it. He opened the cellophane-like package, revealing 4 pills inside. The creature told Higdon that one of them pills would last him 4 days, and he should take one now. Without questioning, Higdon reached for one of the pills, placed it in his mouth, and swallowed it. Then he placed the package into his pocket. The creature said his name was Ossel-1, and as he moved, Higdon became aware of a transparent cube-shaped object on the ground behind the figure. He would estimate it to be around 5 feet high and wide, and around 7 feet tall. Although he was not told so, Higdon somehow realized this was the strange figure's ship. As if to read in his mind, the creature asked him, "Do you want to come along?" Although he didn't specifically answer yes, he must have gestured as much. The next thing he knew, he was inside the cube. Next to him was Ossel-1, struggling to understand how they could both fit inside such a small object. Higdon looked around in awe, but still with a persistent panic bubbling away inside of him. When he noticed the 5 Elk was also in the cube with him, his own memories and sense began to become fuzzy. He would recall that they were motionless and paralyzed. It was then he realized he sat in a chair with bands holding his arms down firmly. He could feel that the craft was lifting off the ground. He also noticed another of the creatures enter the room. He approached him, fitting a bizarre helmet-like object on his head. The underside to the craft was clear, and beneath them Higdon could see the planet-shaped object, similar to a basketball. It was a planet, but it wasn't Earth, or any planet he knew of. They would enter this mysterious world, and all Higdon's memories of it was hazy at best. What he does recall is fascinating. Most prominent in his mind was a megalithic tower that dwarfed all around it. He would recall that all around this tower were revolving patterns of multicolored lights. The lights were so intense that Higdon couldn't keep his eyes open to look at them. Apparently unaffected by their guests' discomfort, the figures brought the craft to land at the base of the tower. Higdon could see the alien world through the transparent walls of the craft. He was amazed then that in front of him outside the craft were several humans talking to each other, just as they would on Earth. He claimed there were two young girls, one around 11 years old and one in her early teens. A teen couple around 18 years of age and an older man in his 50s. As he watched this scene outside the ship, his host approached him once more. They were, he claimed, on a planet 163,000 light miles from Earth. He didn't question if the creature had meant light years, and to which he replied, the passage of time is different for them. Also wanted in motion that they should go, and Higdon was led inside the behemoth tower. He was taken into an elevator which took them to a room with a platform in the center of it. He was told to stand on the platform. As he moved, he noticed he was not walking, but floating, although he didn't understand how. Upon stepping onto the raised platform, a glassy shield appeared from out of the wall. It stopped in front of Higdon, evidently performing some kind of scan on him. After 5 minutes or so, the shield retracted away from him and back into the wall. Then his host informed him, rather bluntly, that he was to be taken back to Earth where they had found him, as he didn't suit their purpose. What is extremely interesting about the detail is just short of a decade later, an elderly gentleman in England named Alfred Berthoud would receive almost the exact same response to a similar examination on a landed UFO. It is highly unlikely that Berthoud was aware of Higdon's encounter and perhaps endorses what Higdon believes the purpose was a breeding program. Before he knew it, was back inside the cube with no real memory of how he arrived there. He did recall, however, the also one admiring his primitive weapon before handing him back to his rifle. He also, rather bizarrely perhaps, remembers his most informing him that their home planet had no fish in their seas, which was one of the things about Earth that the people most liked. As they prepared to take off, the creature took back the pills as he would now no longer need them. This was the last memory of the cosmic encounter before he found himself back on Earth. Disorientated and on the verge of mentally breaking down, Higdon didn't question how his truck had simply been moved several miles from where he had parked it to the spot where he had encountered a humanoid creature. When the creature stated to him, "We'll see you," he realized he was floating silently above the ground. Next thing he knew, the craft was gone, and he was standing on the edge of a rocky cliff edge. Although the drop was only 10 feet or so, he was not prepared for it. When he landed on the ground below, he would sustain considerable injuries. Perhaps he also suffered a concussion in the fall, as his next memory is of the struggling along the dirt road, unable to remember what had happened or where he was. He eventually relocated his vehicle, although due to his shredded memory, he didn't realize it was his truck. He was simply using it to take shelter. When a voice came over the CB radio, he quickly picked up the receiver and asked for help. Unsure of his location, he recalled a sign that stated he was at the North Boundary National Forest. A search party would eventually locate him just before midnight. When they did, they were at a loss as to how he managed to drive the truck there. Furthermore, there was no tire tracks anywhere nearby, despite the muddy ground, and just to add another twist to the whole encounter, as the search party was looking for Higdon, they would encounter strange green red and white flashing lights in the sky overhead. Higdon's wife had joined the search effort. However, Higdon at first failed to recognize her. When he finally did respond to the search party, he exclaimed wildly, "They took my elk." Higdon would eventually go with his wife to a patrol car and was taken to the nearest hospital. The rest of the search unit, with great difficulty, eventually managed to remove his truck from its mysterious location. As well as the injuries sustained in the fall, doctors would notice how bloodshot his eyes were. Further tests would reveal more intriguing results. Though his blood, for example, appeared to be enriched with nutrients and vitamins, more so than the average person, even stranger, scarring on his lungs from exposure to tuberculosis had seemingly disappeared. In short, as Dr. Tongo, who had examined him, would state, he's now in A1 super condition. It is hard to imagine that this transformation isn't connected to the encounter. It was the following day when Higdon would to remember the encounter in full. With a consent to do so, the authorities would inform the press of the incident. This in turn would attract members of the UFO community, researchers, and enthusiasts to seek out Higdon to hear of this mind-bending events. One of those who took an interest in Higdon's case was Leo Sprinkle, who was adept to using hypnotic regression to unlock memories of such encounters. Although much of what happened was already known to Higdon, the sessions in early November 1974 did manage to reveal some other interesting aspects of the incident, and quite possibly offers us an insight into such visitations are happening. According to Higdon, the visitations to Earth are essentially food gathering missions. Many of the animals and fish on Earth do not exist anywhere else in the universe. Groups of such animals, such as the elk on this occasion, go to their home world for breeding purposes. He also stated again that humans go to this alien world are there for similar reasons. However, no further information came to mind regarding the particulars of the or details of this program. Higdon did state, however, that he believed the reason he did not suit their purpose was due to him having had a vasectomy several years previous. Incidentally, Sprinkle would find in his evaluation that Higdon is reporting sincerely the events he experienced. Aside from the bizarrely crumpled bullet that he retained, it is impossible to explain the vanishing of the lung scars that are in his medical records, and then there is impossible location of his truck that the search party never could explain how it came to such an inaccessible spot. Several years later, in 1978, he underwent a polygraph test, which he passed it unquestionably, with the report stating something utterly fantastic did happen in this man's life. The test proves it beyond a doubt. Well, what do y'all think about that story? Do you think Mr. Higdon was telling the truth? Uh, it's some of the evidence and everything was pretty amazing. Without him losing the scars, I just think he might still, if he hadn't had that vasectomy, he might still be up there with him. But maybe he was only gonna be up there for a week or so because they gave him enough pills for 16 days. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing story. I'm gonna try to get more into the kind of the UFO thing um, and just spectacular stories. Again, well, what do y'all think about that story there? And would you like to hear more stories like this? And the format I did it, instead of me doing my introduction, I went straight into the story. Would y'all like that better? As always, I'm trying new things. That's my goal, to try new ways and everything. It's these stories of alien abduction and stuff. It's pretty wild. Some people don't think it's possible. Um, others, others others believe it. And as always, I don't have the answers. I don't know for sure. But for sure, as always, I believe anything is possible. How, the key factors in my mind to this story, you know, is the facts for sure. How did this truck get to where they had hell getting it back out without any visible tire tracks? And way it sounded like they had, hell getting it back out. So, which should have showed it a path, like they're, makes you wonder how they got there. Like, did the alien float the truck over there where he was at? So here's your truck, you know. Um, I guess it's a good thing he had a CB radio in there, so he could communicate and get help. Back in that day, there were no cell phones or anything like that. He took the polygraph, passed it with flying colors. He still had the bullet that was messed up, and his lungs were clear. It was completely unscarred anymore. He took one pill, and his nutrients were higher than ever than a normal human being, and his lungs were healed. I like to have one of them pills. I don't have a whole lot of stuff, but yeah, it'd be nice to be able to cure all my ailments and make my shoulders feel very, better, and um, be interesting. But I hope y'all like this way. I hope y'all like this different format. I'm always trying different things and throwing out there, and there's nothing wrong with a failed try. So I appreciate y'all listening. Please bleep bloop in the comments what you think. Do you like this format? Would you like me to do this more often? Um, do y'all like me just getting straight to business and getting into the story? Or would you like me to do the introduction and tonight, blah, blah, blah? I'm open to either way. It don't matter to me. This is for y'all. This is for me. I'll enjoy doing this and doing it for y'all, for the ones that enjoy the show, enjoy the platform. And I appreciate y'all listening. Um, as always, I'm syndicated on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. We are on Spotify. We are on Apple. We are on YouTube, Rumble. I'm trying to spread it out. We go live. We're still going live on Wednesdays, 8:30 Central, with the Talking with Conspiracy, our live show, which we'll talk about a little bit of everything on that. The good thing on that is that you can interact. You can come in, and if you want to ask questions in the chat, I try to keep up with it best I can. I'm not the best, but we and we'll have guests come on and talk about different things. So hope you enjoy that. It's fun, we have a good core group that keeps coming back and chatting with us, and they seem to enjoy it. So I'm sure more and more will be able to enjoy this as we go along. We have the merch store. I'll have it off in the comments, so you can actually buy some merchandise if you want to support the channel. All this stuff costs money. Subscriptions and equipment and time, and but I enjoy doing it. It ain't about the money. If it was about the money, I wouldn't have done it. It's about spreading knowledge and spreading stories and helping people find things they never knew about. So that's my goal. Well, as always, y'all, I appreciate y'all listening, and y'all keep on keeping on. And peace and chicken grease. Y'all be good. Subscribe, like, share. Don't forget to do the